action from Hertz Tribeca Trade Group, and this is your end of day recap for Thursday, December 7th. And nice bounce back for the indices today. I always like to start with, how we finished the day yesterday and then just recap today's price action. But before I do that, risk disclaimer in front of you. Everything that we're going through is for information purposes only. Please read the full risk disclaimer right there. So if you remember yesterday, we closed. It was kind of a pretty pathetic price action, I would say. We opened on right around the highs of the day. Actually, we went a little bit higher in the beginning of the day. And then for the rest of the day, it was just kind of a slow grind higher until the end of the day, and it kind of picked up speed to the downside. However, one of the main things, that we kind of concluded towards the end of the day was just that we didn't break down. And, my thought has been basically for the better part of this week is that the markets are kind of waiting. It seems like they're waiting for more information, whether that's tomorrow's jobs report, whether that's something next week. I don't know. I don't have the answer to that equation, but it just seems like we're exploring the range right now. And, I would have been maybe a little bit more negative yesterday had we really broken that value area for the week, right? That's why I basically use, the indicator that I use, volume at price. It tells me where there's some really good support and resistance, right? And you can see that last week. And in fact, we've basically been going sideways now for a couple of weeks when you look at the S&P. But just like last week, we got to the bottom of the value area. We bounced here, we bounced here. Now, again, we didn't go far to the upside. We closed on the highs of the week last week, which, left you kind of more excited about the way that the week ended. It was a nice first of the day trading day back on Friday, right, which is almost a week ago at this point. But we've seen this week it's been kind of all over the place. So we've tested the range again. We tested, Monday there was some volatility, a little bit of volatility. We tested that bottom of value, held it, made a little bit of a higher low. I guess this was I don't know if this was Tuesday, I think Tuesday morning, right? And then, of course, yesterday on the close, we came in and tested again. So that's the good. The bad, I would say, well, it's tough to really be negative about today because it was pretty good, but we just basically got to the high of the range again, right? And when you look at the Qs too, so let's go back before I go to the Qs, right? Just notice again now that we don't want to, price just does not want to break out yet, right? And notice that this 45.88, the top of the value area, and we're looking at S&P futures, notice that we can't close above there for whatever reason. Well, I guess we're waiting for more information. And again, it could be that jobs report, when we look at the economics for tomorrow, right? We have initial jobless claims. Sorry, not initial jobless claims. We have change in non-farm payrolls that looking for 180, 183, and then private payrolls 158. And if this comes in line and we don't move tomorrow, then of course it's going to be, well, maybe the market's waiting for the CPI report, right? And they're looking for a 0.0, right? And that is next week. That's Tuesday of next week. And then of course, on Wednesday, we're going to have the Fed, right? So just looking ahead to what the calendar is basically showing us. So S&P, right? Real nice bounce today, but it's a bounce. And that's kind of what I was saying all day today. I was telling traders, I've been saying, like I said, I've been saying this for all week that I don't think we're really going to break to new high, to break out of this range today when you've got all this information that's coming at us. Qs, I mean, that's a really nice looking candle. Qs actually got a little bit above yesterday's open. So, I mean, that's even better looking, even though we're still tucked inside this value area. And you could see here too, the one thing that I was saying this morning, because I write a Substack report every morning with just about the indices, and I include just one name that's breaking out on multiple time frames. But we did not make a new low on that move. Again, it was kind of a pathetic day yesterday. We closed on the lows, but we didn't take out the lows from earlier this week. So notice the rally. We rallied and took out yesterday's highs. So this is a great little trading opportunity, I thought, for today. But we slammed right into that top of value for the week, right? So that's 390.87. So yeah, we're a little bit higher than where we were to start the week, but there's really nothing that you can, as I like to say, hang your hat on to get excited about, because we're not breaking the range here, right? We're just testing it. So we've done this a couple of times. Could we come down tomorrow and retest the lows? Sure, it's possible. I mean, that's just the way it's been. I will say this: I liked that the breadth was strong today, right? I always go over IWM last, but IWM is kind of the same thing, right? This isn't going anywhere either so far this week. We've tested, and this actually did take out the lows this morning and bounce back, and we're basically just where we started. So again, it's tough to really be super positive about the market, and it's you can't really be super negative until we break this range. Okay. And again, you could try to predict what it's going to be, if it's tomorrow or if it's next week. But right now we're just kind of, and by the way, before we talk about some single stocks and some sectors, right? I don't think that there's anything wrong with this for now. I would prefer us to break out of the value area and start to move to the next leg higher. But after this type of a move, we're due for some digestion and probably some fake out moves, right? That's what the market likes, to fool as many people, right? So when people are really coming into this at the last stage of the move, ready for that next leg higher, the market's just not ready to do it yet, right? So I think for now we watch the higher range, and we watch the lower range. And just as I went over, you have those levels for the Qs and for S&P futures that we just went over. If you want, you can rewind the video and you can get those levels. But I think that will be important to watch. Again, what I always try to do is really remain grounded and watch those levels, and that helps me formulate an opinion, right? And it also, these levels act as a roadmap so that I know, like, not to put on trades at the wrong time, and maybe to take some profits right when we're at that resistance, right? Another phrase that I've been throwing around is like sell the rip when we're in a range, right? You could buy the dip a little bit, and when we're in a range, and you could sell the rip too as well. All right, so that's my index review, which I think is important right now. Other things besides the equity indices, the dollar made a big move. I've been kind of complaining about the dollar, right? I do that a lot. I complain about what I don't like about the market, right? The dollar, which has been kind of gliding higher since the end of November, finally kind of moved down a little bit. So moved down to 0.5%, a little bit of a floating hammer there in the dollar. But again, these things, the two things that I majorly concentrate on, unless there's something else going on, it's mainly the dollar and bonds, right? And bonds, as we know, have been, here's the 30-year bond ETF, which did take out a couple upside targets. So again, it could be a pivotal day, but there are some upside targets that we have taken out here in the 30-year bond futures. Also, we're right at that resistance point, right? So we're retesting the breakdown level, right? And that's 119.28. And I think, again, the jobs numbers tomorrow will probably hinge on whether that closes inside back inside the value area for this year, or if it gets rejected. All right, so let's talk about a couple sectors now that we've gone through a lot of the macro. What did really well? Well, I'd love to see this, when semis outperform. Remember XLC, the communications ETF, which was also strong today, was mainly, I'm sorry, not mainly, but has a good portion of this ETF is Google. So here's what Google did today, and this surprised me. So real nice move, and it's tough to complain about an up 5% move because that is a big move. However, we are hitting resistance. We did hit resistance. 138.62 is your resistance on your daily chart. So again, these levels kind of tell you where this is kind of running into, and where a short term is important here to remind you. But we ran right into resistance, which is the top of valley, 137.68. So on multiple time frames, and same thing with last week, right? So it's kind of coming into, so again, impressive rally from the lows. There's no doubt about it. That was a very impressive move by Google. But if you're looking for something further, you've got to watch that resistance, right? And then the other sector that was super strong today, which also I've been kind of, and I'm not sure if I showed it. I forget if I showed it in yesterday's video. I know I talked about it, but semis. I was disappointed in yesterday's price action because I was looking for the turn yesterday in the semis, right? Gap fill, hold of the 20-day moving average. and starting to move higher a little bit. So I did play this today. I was and remember yesterday I talked about AMD. I did not hold the trade. That's what sometimes markets are confusing. AMD looked horrible yesterday. It closed on the lows, right? And then today had a huge move up today, 9%, almost up 10% for the day for AMD. So if you're looking to see, like, if you're not in AMD, there's a couple things that you can think about. Number one, if you want to go long, I would go long. I would be watching as long as it stays above 127, right? And again, what's nice about this is like you pick your support levels that are very close by, so that if you're wrong, you know where you're going to be wrong, right? Because sometimes these names will basically do this type of a move and keep going, right? So you could be long versus I think 127, and then the next area to target to the upside is 133. I mentioned you could do a couple things because I didn't put this trade back on today. Shame on me. Yep. Bad story, but listen, this is what happens in trading, and it is what it is. And I get over these things really quickly because I know I'm not going to be perfect in my trading. And I know sometimes there's going to be tough, tricky moves like AMD closing on its lows yesterday. So what I did was I went long SMH, right? And we did see some call buying in this today. We saw call buying in SOXL, which is the levered ETF. We also saw some calls in NVIDIA, which still has not broken back into the value area. And the level I keep repeating is this right around like this 470 level, right? That's where that needs to turn the corner. But I'm seeing some other plays that look pretty good. MCHP made a nice move. Analog devices looks pretty good too, right? That made a nice move today. Didn't still inside value. So for now, I'm long SMH, and I did take a target in it today because I didn't know what Broadcom is going to do, and I think Broadcom is down a couple percent right now. So it's kind of hanging out here. Maybe it is above yesterday's highs. Now Morgan Stanley, I think, downgraded Lam Research and basically is a bit more cautious on the semis, but I think they're a little bit late with that call, my opinion. So we'll see how it handles that. The new news after hours. But yeah, for tomorrow, I would be watching 162, and if it can get out of this pattern, which it looks like it's trying to, the pattern of lower highs here in SMH, right? And I mentioned Broadcom. Notice, well, it's recovering there from the lows. So Broadcom was kind of difficult as it came into earnings is that it ran right into the bottom of its value area for the month of December. That's 923. And also notice how that lined up on the 1 hour chart. You also had very close to 923 is 922 and change there was also some resistance. So who knows? Maybe they may be able to turn that on the if they say something positive on the earnings call. But yeah, there's a little bit of resistance there on multiple time frames. So we'll see how that goes for tomorrow. And I think Broadcom is like the fourth or fifth biggest name in the SMH ETF. So good. I'm long the semis. We'll see if they'll continue to carry. And it was a constructive day. And again, I would love to see a little bit follow through. But again, we'll see what happens with the jobs report. Another group that I wanted to discuss today too was the travel group. And I think, JetBlue came out with guidance this morning, brought the stock was up 15%, right? And I loved what, this is a name that's in a downtrend, but nice little break of this area. But what I really liked was the move out of the continuation higher in some of like the travel leisure, like booking names. So for example, BKNG. Now I know this is a tough name to trade, but that's a really nice break higher, right? Nice little kind of cup here. Right. And I put this on the watch list yesterday because I'm like, this will be really nice if it can break here. Booking is one of those names that tends to trend, right? You can look back and look at how nice that trend looks like. Right. And here's what the weekly chart looks like too. Right. So, pushing to those highs. Now, of course, if you don't like booking, Expedia has been making one heck of a move too. Right. That another name that just has gapped and gone on earnings and consolidated a little bit and moved higher. And then the other name, which I don't trade this name too much because I just find it a little bit too difficult. It's a little bit too sideways for me, but Airbnb had a real nice day today, also up 3%. Also, there's a couple names I had jotted down. So besides all of that, what you're getting is some pullbacks, or what we've gotten is some pullbacks recently. So for example, which I view as a positive, right? Adobe, for example, right? Now we know that this hit this upside version point of control, right? And this came back into this 20-day moving average, but you're seeing this in a lot of strong names, this push back to the 20-day moving average. So I'm watching Adobe. Adobe, I've got a level to watch here. Notice how we're right up against that bottom of value. So 608.87 is something to watch. And then going back to the semis, Synopsys, is just a semi name that doesn't get that much attention. It kind of freaked out a little bit on earnings, tried to go higher. That got rejected, went lower, took out a VPOC. And I think this is a nice name to own like long term. It's not really a great trading name because it's a $534 stock, but same thing here, push back into the 20-day moving average. So you've got a lot of setups like this where you break out, you let that 20-day moving average catch up, price comes down to meet it. And now you just kind of have to watch for some of these names for them to move off of that 20-day moving average and resume higher. Apple also caught my eye too. This has been moving up, and this only has this, and almost took this out. I was going one more VPOC here, but I like what Apple's been doing. I kind of wrote Apple off a little bit too early after it took out this VPOC, but same thing, kind of came into the 20-day moving average. A little bit of a different setup, but it moved above there and has been continuing to push higher. So that's enough for today's recap. Again, it'll be interesting how this range will be broken. One other thing too, which I don't think I mentioned in this video, is that the seasonality, right? We know that the Santa Claus rally is not till the very end of the year. It's the last 5 trading days of the year, and it's the first 2 of next year. So this right now, what we're getting is kind of quite normal. After a strong seasonal month of November, right? There's a little bit of digestion, which is and a little bit of weakness in the beginning of December, according to seasonality, right? And if we're going to go by that playbook, right, then things should kind of perk up as the month goes on. So we'll see if that's in the cards. We've got a big jobs report tomorrow and a big CPI and Fed meeting next week. So there will be quite a bit of events for next week. All right, guys, have a great night. See you tomorrow.